And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 88. 88 miles per hour. Perhaps we should do a time machine DeLorean themed Aerostar, maybe one day. Imagine if you go back in time, no pun intended, and imagine if the star of Back to the Future had been the Aerostar instead of the DeLorean. Equally cool, I would argue. And just imagine what fanfare there would be, surrounding the Aerostar. You see Aerostars going for $50,000 or $60,000, people doing the whole Back to the Future Aerostar, replica. Anyways, 88 miles per hour, number 88, here we go. Very funny that I was just talking quite a bit about cargo vans. I got that wonderful email, and we featured a beautiful cargo van, a white cargo van, and it'll come as no surprise probably to you that I'm saying this to segue into our vehicle, which, as you'll see, is another white cargo van, but quite a different one than last time, and you'll see shortly as we introduce the vehicle. So here we go. Here we have a 1995 Ford Aerostar, listed for $3,200 in Martinsville, Virginia. The fine folks down in Martinsville, Virginia. And, normally when the image of the Aerostar sort of fades in the background behind me, it's usually the first photo or the best photo, and I rarely sort of choose which one it's going to be. It's sort of just where the images start. Today, I purposefully changed it because I wanted to sort of like give you all a little bit even more suspenseful tease into it. So here we have just, your normal Aerostar. Now you can see we have some wood paneling, and you can see we have a roof rack with what looks to be like a big board on the top. But the aesthetics of this Aerostar are quite pleasing to my eye anyhow, and we'll see in this next image. Boom. So here we have, there's been a couple like this over the years that kind of come and go. I don't know how many we've featured on this program. Previous iterations we've featured more of them, but you've seen, like hunting vehicles and sort of these like, like kind of rock star, really like Ed Hardy style, graphic tee style Aerostars, where they have all the accessories, lots of visuals, and they're kind of like all done up and some would argue maybe overdone. Some say trashy, I say classy, in other words. So I'm all about all the mods and the add-ons and all that stuff. I think personal expression through a vehicle is a beautiful thing, and I draw no bar in terms of, there's that channel Worst Spec, and I know that it's all in good fun, and I know that in showing these vehicles that they're deeming worst spec, it's actually kind of celebrating them. I'm not here to come down on that channel. I think it's a great channel. However, I take it maybe one step further, where I really lean into, as much, gaudiness or sort of tackiness or sort of just sort of like hoopla you can tack onto the vehicle. I'm all for it. So here we have this beautiful, I'm all but certain non-functioning hood scoop with some lovely decals on the sides here. You have, looks like more decals. I don't even know what these little things are here. Obviously on your cargo, you have your blacked out grille and black bumper. These may have been painted, but I think a lot of them did come like that anyways. And then what looks to be some striking, medallion type thing on the windshield here. So, sitting along these several vehicles aside and behind it, it actually fits in quite well. But let's keep going, shall we? So, boom, okay. A lot of things to talk about here. We get a little better view of these graphics of these like sort of screaming eagles. Love that. We go to the back here. This is like peak like Murica, so you have your eagle sort of wrap over your panel and windshield. Interestingly enough, it looks like it does kind of cut short here. So that's sort of weird. Maybe it was like a square and they had to cut it here, and this is as far as it reached over. I'm just speculating here. Over your panel and your sort of half window. Another cargo with a half window. Now maybe they were all like this and I just never noticed it. I don't, maybe the door side, the sliding door side of the Aerostar, because it only had one door, always had this window in all the cargos, and I never even just noticed it. But I thought there were some that were completely paneled out. I could be wrong, or tell me in the comments if you've seen that. Your roof rack with, you know, these triangles make it look funny. It is just sort of a standard roof rack, and then they've put some like large carrying device on top. Maybe they were hauling something very specific, and it just keeps getting better. Now, a decal that I've always wanted, or a sort of accessory that I've always wanted, is this front spoiler. I want one of these so bad. I think it would look so good on my 93 Sport, or my Brown for that matter, but I think on the Sport in particular, it would really complete the look with the running boards and everything. I have seen a couple of these pop up for sale recently. It seems like they're getting a little bit easier to find. They're not cheap, and I'm still not 100% confident it will actually fit, but I would like to buy one and just try it, because if it does fit, then, you know, you're off to the races. And in my opinion, this accessory looks so good on the Aerostar, that front spoiler. It's such a sign of the times, the 80s and 90s, and it looks fantastic. Your rain guards, which we talked about last video, it has your rain guards as well. So it's just like, how many accessories can we pack onto this thing? And last but certainly not least, your pièce de résistance here is we have a side exhaust, and a true side exhaust, because I always joke about how the Aerostar has a semi-side exhaust, because it usually comes out right behind your tire here, your passenger tire, and it sort of just curves out right there. And so it is sort of like a semi-side exhaust, because it does technically come out the side. Here we have a full-blown side exhaust. This could have came off of like a C2 or C3 Corvette. I never know how these things are held in place, quite honestly. I imagine there's something holding it in place there. But so presumably you have headers, or maybe they just, you know, bolted this on both sides. We will see it on the other side. Spoiler alert, it's a dual side exhaust. And what I should have mentioned before, the pièce de résistance, was these beautiful rims too. I've seen these rims on Aerostars before. I can't remember if they're off of, if they're an aftermarket wheel, or if they came on something, maybe like a Geo Tracker or an early Ford Explorer. Although they look a little bit flashy to me, quite honestly, to be on one of those vehicles. But I think maybe I've seen them on Mustangs or Explorers. It's probably an aftermarket wheel, but you know, normally I'm a little bit of a purist when it comes to wheels on an Aerostar, just because, you know, just like you see on like an old resto modded Corvette, sometimes, like, again, I'm almost contradicting myself here. It's a matter of personal opinion. Like, I make no judgments about other people's vehicles. However, in my own, you know, personal thing, I just love the steel wheels, so I prefer to put steel wheels on my car. But I will say, on this one, it works so perfectly. And actually, I would put these wheels on an Aerostar, because they do still have that 90s, 80s vibe, and I think they look absolutely fantastic here. The one, you know, if this thing had this, if this had this rear bumper, I'd probably be, you know, maybe messaging this person, even though this is a little bit out of my price range, quite frankly. And, you know, I need to be probably downsizing, not acquiring at this moment in time. But that rear bumper, to get a cargo rear bumper, is really hard. And unfortunately, that is sort of like torn to shreds, as we'll see in some other videos. So, boy, just a knockout, just like a true masterpiece. I mean, I've never seen an Aerostar with like a proper side exhaust. So that's a first for me. Let's go to the back now. And of course, you know, again, unfortunately, that bumper situation. But look at these wolf eyes on the back. You know, they've kind of taken every sort of like memeified shirt that people kind of wear ironically, but you know, the wolf eyes, or the big animal print t-shirts, the Murica, kind of like Screaming Eagles and all that stuff. And they've sort of like plastered it all on this Aerostar, and it actually kind of all works together perfectly to make this like really bodacious. And the fact that it's a cargo van, like a panel van, with the barn doors and the big weird roof rack on top, it all just like blends together perfectly, and it's a beautiful amalgamation of like sort of an aesthetic. And it just looks so nice seated by these other trucks. I mean, I did the back for the last episode just because I didn't have a great shot, but I might do the back again on this, although it's going to be hard not to use that side exhaust picture for like, you know, the thumbnail on this shot. But certainly this person has a connoisseur of an eclectic arrangement of vehicles. I suppose we should back up just a second and talk about do the description about this vehicle. Driven 27,383 miles. Now, I'm guessing that's maybe rolled over, although I think in 95 you did have a 6-digit odometer. So if this is only a 27,000 mile work vehicle, then it's worth every bit of $3,200. That's amazing. But you would think they would brag a little bit about it more in the description if it was truly such low mileage. So interesting. Automatic transmission, exterior color white, interior color blank, meaning it has an interior. It's various colors. Fuel type gasoline, clean title. Okay, description, 1995 Ford work van, runs and drives good, nothing wrong with it, cold air, hot heat. Cold air and hot heat. So, you know, again, if it's really that low mileage, then this is, you know, the bumper, obviously, that's a shame. Not that it's impossible to locate, but, you know, it really completes the look and ties the Aerostar together. We talked last episode about these barn doors, and I have a little bit better picture to sort of feature them here. Now, we are missing our Aerostar badging, which is a shame. Usually the badging is right in the center of this left door, and it's just, you know, stuck on right in the middle with plenty of open space around it. It's almost like, you know, framed on a wall in an art gallery, because it is a beautiful piece of like sort of aesthetic lettering. We have your, you know, asymmetrical door with your lock and your handle and your Ford logo over your license plate. Really just a cool package. I love any type of asymmetry on vehicles. I always think it's cool. Even Land Rover has done some kind of cool stuff with asymmetry. The Nissan Cube did some cool stuff with asymmetry. So I always appreciate some asymmetry in a vehicle. In this regard, it's totally functional because you can't really put your license plate in the middle of two barn doors that swing open. You know, functionality meeting fashion is sort of the Aerostar's calling card, so no surprises there. Okay, let's move on. The interior, we have a nice shot of this roof spoiler. You can see just the beautiful like sort of addition that angle provides. And I wonder if this is, you know, purely aesthetic. If this is supposed to be like some sort of built-in sun visor. I wonder when you're driving if you can actually see that thing and if it does anything to prevent the sun coming in. Be a question. Now your door cards do look pretty chopped up here. I don't know what happened there. I'm not sure if this door handle is even functional. Something went on there. However, we do have crank windows. Again, not surprising in a cargo Aerostar, and if you've seen a couple more episodes, you'll note how many Aerostars had crank windows, and at that time, power windows really sort of were like an upgrade option. And it's funny to think that it wasn't that long ago. You know, now we totally take for granted. If you ever see crank windows in a car, it's like astonishing. I don't even know if they, you know, I reviewed what year was that? 2010 or something like that, Ford Focus, and that had crank windows, and the elderly lady that ordered it had to, like, you know, custom order, basically specify that she wanted crank windows in it, and that was kind of cool. So I wonder, you know, that'd be a good video to do all unto itself. Like, can you still get a car with crank windows on it? Is it even possible? I don't know, but this has them. So if you buy a Ford Aerostar, then you can get crank windows. Another thing that I thought was cool is this. Now, maybe this is an aftermarket, but it kind of looks like the Ford, maybe it is a little different. This has a beautiful center console in it, and Ford did offer like a really nice center console that I would like to buy one day, one of them. And it really does help, because you are riding a little bit higher up in the Aerostar, being a van, and you know, the factory cup holder that they give you is pretty much of a joke. One of the few things on the Aerostar that was not either well designed or just an afterthought. These center consoles are really, really nice, and I've seen ones that are like a built-in cooler that you can buy like sort of from the aftermarket. I think Igloo did a couple that are kind of becoming like rare and classics. They're kind of hard to find, but very, very cool. Appreciate that. Got seat covers on it. It looks like a gray interior, which again for a cargo Aerostar, pretty standard, especially in 95, you know, one of the later model years. Does look like we have some sort of holes here. I'm not sure what accessory was installed and then removed there. And here we have the interior, and I really do like, I don't know if this is, it's not T111, it's some sort of, it almost looks like, is that peeling off or chipped, or is this actually like scribed to go in there? No, it looks like it's like a uniform thickness. I really like a wood paneled interior, especially on a cargo van or a camper van. Something going on with your light there. I like how there's a random seat from like a Ford Windstar or a Dodge Ram or something in there. It's just set sideways, side saddle, so you can carry a third person, not very safely, but you can carry them. The plywood, you know, it has a nice bend to it. Looks like they did a pretty good job going around your wheel wells, and even this looks like it's like dynamatted or has some sort of insulation. So pretty decent little interior install here. And it's just, you know, I like the bare sheet metal, but this does sort of frame it in nicely. It gives you like an exact, you know, idea of your proportions in the vehicle. And I really do like the wood paneling. Quite a fan of that generally, and also in this vehicle. Okay, another interior shot. I wish I knew whether, I don't think this is the factory center console. I'm guessing it's aftermarket or taken from another vehicle, but it seems to work perfectly in there. And then you have 4 cup holders, and you're a little bit higher up. Maybe you have some storage in here. You can put a CD or cassettes in there. I'm guessing this might even not have a cassette player. It might just be an AM FM radio, which again, now we've talked about before as well. You can't even get an AM radio in new Fords that are coming out now. So the Aerostar has a lot of things that are desirable, even in the year 2023. And boom, I saved the best for last. I sort of teased you with these other shots, and now we get this sort of complete picture. And maybe only the one sort of piece of imagery which was lacking from the Americana thing was, you know, not only a screaming eagle, but one that's riding a motorcycle. I think that certainly, you know, fits the vibe here with some like lightning bolts and stars and stripes and, you know, everything. And this, you know, installed very nicely and cleanly, although it does look like it cuts off again and they put a little strip in here. That's kind of funny. Maybe it wasn't designed for this, you know, sort of hexagonal parallelogram, sort of curved parallelogram panel that shows off the beautiful window lines of the Aerostar. But that's definitely, it looks like this is probably a lock here. Sorry, I'm getting distracted, but that's probably what these holes are for, some sort of lock to lock the door with like an actual padlock. Popular in the contractor world. I'm wondering if this was like a motorcycle support bike. It would make sense, you know, put a motorcycle in the back and maybe even want to put accessories or parts or whatever on top if you're going rallying or something. A nice tint on the windows, and again, that side exhaust with these wheels. And in this picture, you know, you could tell it's a little bent, but you wouldn't be able to tell that the bumper was completely off here. So aesthetically, it really just gives you the complete picture of what this would look like if it had like a full rear bumper. And that is just stunning. I mean, that is really built out well. Every of the proportions, I mean, it really does look like a hot rod. Like, it really looks, I'm so biased obviously, but this is a cool looking van, you know, there's no getting around that. And the proportions of the Aerostar, especially the quote unquote shorty or standard length, I think they've just aged so well. I mean, it's not a large vehicle, it's really not, and yet it's so spacious inside that it makes it supremely practical. And I think like the angularity of it and the way the back end tails off sort of in the opposite direction, it never gets, excuse me, it never gets old for me. It's evergreen, and it's like I said, I think only aging better and better. Some pretty fat tires on these wheels too. I'm guessing these are larger than the stock 14-inch wheels, although I could be wrong about that. And of course, your beautiful side exhaust. I would love to hear this thing, you know, crack and burble. I'm sure it has quite the nice exhaust note. It's probably somewhat loud, I would imagine, with a side exhaust. But, you know, I'm not above, if I ever got a Cargo Aerostar, I would not be above putting like a side exhaust on there, because it is pretty darn cool. And I've never seen that on an Aerostar. So a real gem here. This one just came up for sale, and I actually went through the trouble of screen grabbing it and recording the screen ahead of time, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to record till tonight, just for posterity, just in case by some chance. And it, you know, very probable that this would get away. Now the funny thing I'm noticing, the last thing I'll say, is that this rain guard looks as if it's not designed for this vehicle. Like, usually it sweeps over the bottom and comes up from the side. This looks like one that was sort of retrofitted on. And the more you look at it, the more you realize how it's like a, you know, square peg in a round hole. Like, this is supposed to sweep up and then come across. They just took like a flat one and just like slapped it on as best they could. So that's fantastic. Fantastic, you might even say. And that's like, you know, here at Janky AF, we really appreciate and celebrate these sort of little, you know, jankified things that, you know, maybe they didn't have one, or maybe they had this lying around, they didn't want to buy one. And it works, you know, it works. So just adding to the originality and uniqueness of this vehicle's aesthetic. So there you have it. Just a stunning 1995 Ford Aerostar Cargo in Martinsville, Virginia, listed for $3,200. Boy, you know, if you're in the market, it's Virginia, it's going to be in the South. It looks like it has no rust on it. Certainly the modifications, you know, you could alter if you wanted to, but the side exhaust and the wheels, I'd definitely be keeping, I'll tell you that. And that is certainly a unique Aerostar. And again, if the mileage is original, that's a deal. Maybe you try to barter them down to $3,000 or something like that. But for a super low mileage Aerostar, I'm wondering if we couldn't get a shot of this. It's going to be way too blurry to try to see the, you know, it's funny that I always sort of, let's see the front one more time because we haven't looked at that quite enough. I always sort of poke fun at the obligatory odometer shot where they tell you the mileage and they show you the odometer as if saying like, see, like here's proof. And in this case, I wish they had it because now I have a question as to the actual mileage of this vehicle, just because 27,000 seems kind of hard to believe, frankly, especially because it's been modified. You know, you'd think that it just looks not old, but it looks like it's lived some life, you know. It looks like it's been around the block, it's seen some things, it's had some experiences. And usually vans like that aren't quite this low mileage, especially with the company it's keeping. And, you know, again, making no assumptions about the condition of these other vehicles. I mean, the S10 is pretty nice, actually. But, so if that's original mileage, all the more reason to, you know, hop on this if you're looking at getting into living in the age of Aerostar. And let me tell you, it's worth the price of admission. So there you go. A 1995 Ford Aerostar Cargo, episode number 88. I think a very fitting episode for number 88. We're marching towards 100. We've gotten a bunch of new subscribers lately. Janky, do thank you so much. It's not about the numbers. We're sort of not favored by the algorithm, but that's okay because we have a small, you know, lovely little cadre of Aerostar enthusiasts. And we appreciate everyone. And Janky do thanky. So that's it for now. We'll have another one coming very soon. And until then, Janky do thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.